UFC 295 is over. We had some fun fights. We've got two new champions, I guess one interim. We did the recap yesterday. Go check that out if you haven't seen it. And now finally we get to do our matchmaking. Everybody up on the screen you see is who we're doing. We've got Josh Van, Steve Erseg, Diego Lopez, Matt Frivola, Benoit Saint Denis, Jessica Andrade, Sergey Pavlovich, the new interim heavyweight champion, Tom Aspinall, Jiri Prochazka, and the new 205 champion, Alex Pereira. So let's just get right into it. Josh Van, he had a very, very impressive performance this past weekend over Kevin Borjas. It was a fun fight. He fought through some adversity. His boxing combos looked slick. He does body work beautifully. Goes back up to the head. It was great. We already went over that in the recap. But he comes in, so now he's 2-0 in the UFC. No contender series, came in short notice, took on Zhalga Zhumagulov, was able to get that fight done, which is a very tough first opponent, and then I won't say takes a step down, but takes a step into the more unknown with Kevin Borjas coming off of contender series. He passes that test with flying colors. It's with these prospects, I always feel like sometimes, I guess not always, I sometimes feel like they get rushed too early. There's no need to do that with a guy like Van. He's 22 or 23. He's still got so much to learn, and obviously he looks like he's going to be a very good guy going forward already, so there's no need to rush him. Somebody, though, who is a step up. He's been in there with quite some good guys, lost to some good guys, beat some decent guys. Just a vet who has some good experience, and I think it would be the next step up for Josh Van. Tyson Nam. He's currently 0-2 this year in 2023. Being in there with some good guys, like I said, lost to Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva is a tough fight. He's very well-rounded. I can't remember his last fight, but it felt like he was on a good little run for a second. I can't remember if that was also his last fight, but then Tyson Nam's most recent fight took on Azat Maksum, a newcomer into the UFC who looks to be a very talented up-and-comer. So, kind of keeping with that pace, Tyson Nam has to take on another up-and-comer. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, so he's obviously got a fight below him, and I think I don't want to call it a setup fight, but it would be perfect if Josh Van got this win under his belt. That's a great name to have on your resume moving forward. 2-0 in the UFC would look good with Tyson Nam on that. Or I guess 3-0 with Zhalgas and Tyson. That would be quite a good record to start out 3-0 in the UFC. Next up, we had Steve Erseg. I still think Alessandro Costa was a good bet. I feel like, I don't want to say unlucky, but if he didn't get clipped in that first round, I feel like we could have been up 2-0 going into that third. But regardless, Steve Erseg gets the dub. He was supposed to be fighting Match Now. I think you just remake that fight. Steve Erseg, he comes in short notice, takes on David Dvorak, gets that win. He was supposed to fight up again, taking on somebody else in the rankings. Match Now wasn't able to make it to the octagon on the day. Alessandro Costa on short notice steps in. So I really, there's not much to this one. I really just think you get that fight rebooked for Steve Erseg, get him another ranked fight, see how he does against a guy like Match Now, who's a tough guy, been in there with some good guys. His fight against Sumadarji was crazy, so it'll just be interesting to see how Steve Erseg comes and fights versus a guy like that. Next up, we've got Diego Lopez, everyone's favorite fighter right now. The dude is on a tear, contender for sure for rookie or newcomer of the year, whatever they call it in MMA. And there's kind of two options with him. I know some people want to toss him right into the rankings immediately. Some people think he needs another fight still. To be honest, I'm cool with either. I love the fight I made for if he gets thrown to the rankings right away, so that's kind of what I'm leaning for. But also, if he doesn't get a ranked fight immediately after this one, his next fight is a setup fight for the rankings, and man, regardless, it's a sick fight. And that guy that I'm talking about for the setup fight for the rankings, if he doesn't get the ranked fight immediately, Billy Q. 3-2 in his last 5. Since he came into the UFC, he went on like a nice streak coming in, and then he's gone back and forth, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. That's how it's been for his last 5. He lost to Tucker, then beat Benitez, lost to Burgos, beat Alex Hernandez, lost to Edson Barbosa, brutal knee knockout, and then most recently, a win over Dane Jackson via decision. He's been hanging out around like that little spot right outside the rankings, like that 16 to 20 area, maybe 16 to 25. He's been in that unranked area right outside the rankings for quite some time. I don't know why I said unranked with the quotes. It's unranked. but that little zone right outside the rankings. He's been there for a minute, so I think that would be a good test for Diego Lopez if he's able to pass that test. Obviously, he gets a ranked shot. If not, Billy Q beat a good guy, and now he's on a 2-fight win streak, and he's looking up towards the rankings. And I'm just, regardless of who wins, that's a sick fight. That fight would be extremely high-paced, a lot of volume being thrown, and the Diego Lopez magic would probably, I think, would probably get the fight done, finding the finish in some way. He keeps doing it somehow. Now, if he does get a ranked fight immediately, I think a lot of people kind of had this similar idea. Towards the bottom of the rankings, he's been in the rankings for a bit now, can never really quite get past that like 10 to 8 spot. Dan Ige, he's 2-1 this year, 2023. He's fought 3 times, a win over Dane Jackson and Nate Landwehr, and his loss, his most recent fight, Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell was just able to completely out-grapple him, control him on the ground. And I think this would be, if we are giving Diego Lopez a ranked fight immediately, I think this is the guy. Obviously, there's 2 guys below. I think it's Alex Caceres and Lerone Murphy at like 14 and 15 in the rankings. I think Dan Ige is like 13. But those 2 guys are kind of looking to fight up at the moment, not down, and Dan Ige needs to defend his rank, in my opinion, after losing to Bryce Mitchell. So I think it sets up a perfect fight. If that's what we're doing with Diego Lopez, I'm all here for it. And I think, again, this would be a fun fight. It would be by far the best overall fight. I guess Movsar Evloev. It's crazy to think he's already had that big test, and even though he lost, it was a great fight for Diego Lopez. But it would just be another big test to step up from Pat Sabatini for sure. So this would be an interesting one. I'm cool with Billy Q or Ige, regardless if we want him in the rankings now or if we think he needs one more fight. Both fights are stick fights. Next up, Matt Frevola, no longer in the rankings after his knockout loss to Benoit Saint-Denis. He was 15. Somehow Drew Dober jumps him after Matt Frevola just recently knocked Drew Dober out. Dober is coming off of a win. I can't even remember who he beat now. Did I write it? I didn't put the note. I can't even remember who Dober beats, but Dober jumps him somehow. I thought Frevola was going to be 15, but it is what it is. So he never really got to fight. I guess, was Dober ranked when Frevola fought him? I was going to say Frevola's never really gotten a shot in the rankings, but I guess if Dober was ranked, he did. But then he had to fight down. Regardless, he was on a tear before that. 3 first-round knockouts in a row. I don't think he's still too far off from the rankings. He's that area I talked about for Billy Q. He's kind of in that 16 to 20, 16 to 25 range for sure. And another guy who's been hanging out there who hasn't fought since July, who I would love to see fight. I matched him up with Drew Dober not too long ago, but now it seems we may be past that. That fight could still work technically, but Joe Alvarez. We haven't seen this man in a while. He's a beast every time I fight. He's one of my favorites. Him and Benoit. I don't want them to fight because I don't know who I'd root for. But this would be a sick fight. Obviously, Frevola throws bombs on the feet. Joe Alvarez has the sick Muay Thai. He throws some mean kicks, and obviously his submission game is ridiculous. So I think we get this fight cooking. Whoever wins maybe needs one more shot or one more fight for a ranked fight, or maybe they get somebody in that like 15 to 10 range who's coming off of a loss and get another shot at the rankings. I said it for Alvarez Dober when I made it. Winner gets to take on a ranked fight. It's kind of the same situation for this fight. So I'd love to see Matt Frevola get matched up with Joe Alvarez. We just need a Joe Alvarez fight, and if we can get him in a banger versus Matt Frevola, I'd love to see that. Next up, the man who head kicked Matt Frevola. The dude feels like invincible right now. But Benoit Saint-Denis, he gets into the rankings. He's up at number 11. I think there's 16 ranked lightweights right now because Jalen Turner and Benoit are both number 11, but there's still 1 through 10 and 12 through 15. So I think there's technically 16 ranked guys right now. But Benoit, I don't want to say they're rushing him, but it's a guy I think they know has a lot of star power behind him. He has, I don't want to say all of Europe, but minimum all of France, with I'd say probably quite a bit of European support. I think the way he fights, a lot of people get behind, so he's going to have a big fan base if he keeps tearing people up. And I think the UFC know they can push him, so there's a world here where I think he gets a top 10 fight immediately. And if he does, which I'm I'm a bit biased here. I'm a huge fan of Benoit, so I'm all for it. If he does, I'd love to see him get the loser of Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan, which is coming up. Is it December? It might be December 16th. I can't remember if it's that card or not, or if this is its own fight night main event. I don't know, but this fight's coming up relatively soon. And if we're rushing Benoit like that, I'd love to see that. If this fight happens and like the timelines don't match up, like Benoit wants to fight sooner than the loser of this would be ready, or if the UFC isn't pushing Benoit like I seem to think they are, the battle of ranked number 11s. Both guys are number 11 right now. Jalen Turner, 2 losses in 2023. Dan Hooker and Mateusz Gamrot, which the Gamrot one, still questionable in my opinion, but it is a loss on his record. Nonetheless, we get to see who's the better number 11. And then, obviously, the winner from there would definitely get a top 10 ranked fight next. Well, I guess Jalen Turner might need to put another win after that one. But if Benoit gets the win over Jalen Turner, we would definitely see Benoit shot up into the top 10. So regardless if he gets the loser of Beneil versus Tsarukyan and we fast track him a bit, or if he gets Jalen Turner, I love both fights. I think both make sense, to be honest. It really just depends on which one matches up with Benoit's time frame the best, like when he's able to fight, when like Jalen Turner probably makes the most sense, if we're being honest, just because we don't know if the loser's going to get beat up pretty bad and he needs a long break, somebody's going to get injured. There's a lot of questions, but regardless, I'm here for both fights. Next up, Jessica Andrade, kind of just next man up situation. Who's the next up-and-comer for Andrade to fight? She's on a 3-fight losing streak. I don't know if she gets to fight up quite yet after one win below her in the rankings. I think she needs one more below her, and somebody who I believe, is it a 2-fight win streak? Did I write it down? I think a 2-fight win streak versus Angela Hill and Marina Rodriguez. 3-1 since 2021. She was supposed to fight Tatiana Suarez in August. That fight doesn't end up happening, but I think we go Virna Jandiroba. I think that makes the most sense. I think she's 6. Andrade is 5. Like I said, I don't think Andrade can fight somebody above her yet again, like somebody fighting. I mean, maybe that happens, but it's not how I would run it, and not how I would matchmake. I think she needs to put together at least 2 wins before she can start looking up again in the rankings. And Verna's on that 2-fight win streak, up-and-comer. I think we make this matchup, and the winner gets to look up at that point, because obviously if Verna wins, that's 3 in a row, and if Andrade wins, then she's back on a nice little 2-fight win streak, and she can finally start looking up again. Next up, the loser in our heavyweight interim title fight, Sergey Pavlovich. This is such a weird division right now because, like, even with Tom, his next matchup, there's 2 guys. I think it's like the number 3 rank and the real champion, not the interim champion, John Jones, Stipe Miocic. So these guys aren't going to fight anyone but each other. So those 2 guys are out of the question. Gon wants the title fight now, but he's on. He coming off a win over Sergey Spivak. I don't know if that warrants you a title shot. Curtis Blades, I think he's like 5. What are we doing with him? He was supposed to fight Jailton, but now Jailton wants Gon, and obviously Jailton. What do we do with him? So there's a guy kind of being not talked about. I won't say not talked about, but he's on a sneaky little 3-fight win streak. I believe he's like 6 or something right now, maybe 5 or 6. I think the fight to make, kind of just jumping ahead, is Gon Jailton for the next title shot, because I think Stipe and John fight each other and both retire, ride off into the sunset, whatever. They're kind of in their own division right now. And so, like I said, I think that leaves Gon Jailton for the title match, or for the next title shot with Tom after those 2 guys retire. And I don't know if you remake Blades Pavlovich this soon. It doesn't make sense to remake it almost immediately. Like, they've each had 1 fight since. And it kind of leaves Volkov in a weird spot. So I thought this would be fun. 2 big Russian dudes. Big power on each side. Obviously, different types of weapons just because of the builds. But 2 big Russian dudes throwing down in the heavyweight division. I'm here for it. And Tom Aspinall, like I spoke about, I think this is the fight to make. Gon versus Jailton. I know everybody, and even I said it whenever Jailton and Derek Lewis fought, I said we need to see Jailton versus Blades now, but just with how backed up the division is, it kind of leaves Blades, Jailton, Cyril, and Volkov in like weird spots, just with John and Stipe stalling so much we can't get a real title fight. I don't know. It's all weird. So I think you do this. Tom said he wants to defend his interim belt at UFC 300, so why not run that? It's kind of the real belt because, like I said, I still think Stipe and Jones, whoever wins, or one of them's going to win, probably John Jones, and then they're both going to retire. And next up, we go light heavyweight. I'm giving you the championship matchup first. Normally I do the loser of the fight and then the winner, but I'm giving you the championship matchup first because there's no other options. It has to happen. The former champion, Jamal Hill, vacated, tore his Achilles heel, if I'm not mistaken, hurt his Achilles heel somehow. So he's been out for a while. He is the next title shot after Jiri Prochazka, who also vacated the belt because of an injury. So Jamal Hill is next in line, 100%. I know what's his face, Alex Pereira was calling for Adesanya to come up. Maybe something crazy happens and we get that at UFC 300, but I think the most likely outcome is we get Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill, which I think is the correct matchup to make. Maybe we get Adesanya after this one, I don't know, if Alex wins. But so yeah, I think this is the title fight for sure. And with Jiri, it's also kind of a weird spot because we've got two matchups coming up that maybe could both warrant like a title shot, maybe, or at a minimum, like a title eliminator. So those two fights are Ankalaev and Johnny Walker. They fight, I believe they're the first fight of 2024, the first fight night fight. And then later this year, I'm pretty sure it's at the end of this year, we have, maybe it's next year, I don't even know. But regardless, we have Jan Blachowicz and Alexander Rakic finally coming back from injury. They're fighting each other. And it's kind of this weird spot where both fights are probably calling for the next title shot. One of them is going to have to fight in a title eliminator. One of them gets the title shot. I think what most likely happens is Ankalaev and Johnny Walker, the winner gets the next title shot because Johnny Walker, they can push, they can make that fun. And Ankalaev, it feels like they've been trying to get him there for a while. He's stalled out with 2 draws in a row. And now, if he gets this win, they can finally get him there and just say he deserves it. So I think that's what's going to happen. The winner of that is the next title shot after Jamal Hill. And then that leaves you with Jiri and the other matchup, which, like I said, Alexander Rakic versus Jan Blachowicz. I think we do Jiri versus the winner of that, and that's kind of like the title eliminator. And unless Jiri wins, I don't think he would get the shot immediately. Maybe he does, I don't know. But I think that kind of just sets up the next title eliminator in these guys. It just makes sense. We haven't seen Rakic in forever. Rakic's last fight was actually Blachowicz, but that's the fight he got injured in. It's listed as a TKO, but we know what really happened. Rakic hurt his knee before the fight really got going. So, yeah, UFC 295 done and dusted. We did the recap. Check that out. Like I said, matchmaking done now. And this weekend, UFC Vegas 82, I believe it is, at the Apex. Brendan Allen taking on Paul Craig. Paul Craig, a new middleweight. He got his debut done versus Andre Muniz. Brendan Allen also beat Andre Muniz. I'm not saying it's the battle of his fathers, but it may just be. So I'll see you guys tomorrow for predictions and bets for this video. Other than that, drop a like and subscribe. Peace.